Mrs. Birling, a product of her time, or the most appalling, haughty, snobbish creature that must be punished? Stay tuned, let's get you a top grade Schofield on Shakespeare.
The Sibylkins, and I have to say there is painfully little to like here. She is of a higher class than her husband, and as such knows the critical importance of social proprieties. People need to know their place, with the vast majority of such people being below her, and worthy of nothing more than cold condescension. During his lengthy stage directions at the beginning of the play, Priestley is at pains to emphasize that the general effect of the dining room is not cosy and homelike, and we can't help but feel that this lack of warmth and ease stems from her. As the woman of the house, her role is to help set the domestic tone and atmosphere. Her priority is perhaps best summarised by this screenshot from the BBC 2015 production. Standards, Eric. Mrs. Birling is a woman who likes to remain composed and in control at all times. Hence her reluctance to drink port even during such an auspicious occasion. She feels it is her duty to bring up her children to observe social niceties, and will upbraid them if she feels they're not quite speaking or behaving appropriately, even though both Sheila and Eric are in their 20s. She believes that well-brought-up women should confine themselves to the domestic sphere and firmly close their eyes and ears to any unpleasantness. She expects her children to obey her and accept her received unthinking wisdom. Out of all the characters, she is the most obdurate in her dealings with the inspector. Generally evasive in her replies, she maintains to the end that she was not only doing her duty in turning down Eva Smith's request for help, a decision seemingly triggered predominantly not by facts, but a feeling that the young woman was being impertinent by adapting the surname Birling. Mrs. Birling is too self-absorbed and narrow-minded to understand her children particularly well. For instance, she is staggered to learn about the extent of Eric's drinking. That said, I wonder whether some of this reaction is for the benefit of the inspector. A well-bred, respectable, high-class mother would never have known about the extent of a dependent's drinking problem without acting decisively. And certainly in both the 2015 BBC production and the version from 1954, Mrs. Birling is aware that Eric has some issues with his drinking. She is also clearly unaware of the extent of male, outwardly respectable middle-class hypocrisy in relation to sex outside marriage, gasping at the revelations about Alderman Megati and having no inkling whatsoever about Eric's sexual activity. So much so that she unwittingly ends up condemning him to severe public punishments. There are hints that Mrs. Birling may not fully understand her daughter either. She was against Sheila trying on that fateful dress in Millwoods, and one interpretation of this might be that this contributed to the spoilt brat daughter being more willful, more perversely determined, thus potentially contributing to Eva Smith's dismissal. Certainly the BBC 2015 production develops this idea beyond the text. Look at Sheila's irritation here as she effectively asks her mother to get lost. It is also notable that when Gerald returns to the house late on in the play, it is Mrs. Birling who answers his question about whether this is okay. Surely this question is predominantly aimed at Sheila, or should be, his former fiancée, who has just learnt that he spent a number of months keeping a mistress in a friend's flat, a mistress who would go on to kill herself. So this is a woman who is also sure of herself, and thus it is unsurprising that, like her husband, she is incapable of rethinking her perspective on the world following the inspector's visits. Why on earth should she change? Her children are simply overtired and will be as amused as them in the morning. Nothing but morbid curiosity. Staggered. Well, really, Alderman Meggerty, I must say we are learning something tonight. First, she called herself Mrs. Birling, a piece of gross impertinence, quite deliberate. And he ought to be dealt with very severely. They're overtired. In the morning, they'll be as amused as we are.
At my windows, going home, the birds sing at my door. Going home is all I've ever wanted, so I can see you once more. Going home, my heart is filled with longing. Going home, the sky.
If you have found this video helpful, please do subscribe if you'd like to, or click on the like button or write a comment. My channel, Schofield on Shakespeare, has more than 300 videos aimed at helping students love English literature and language at GCSE and A-level and access the highest grades. For GCSE, do check out my other videos on Jekyll and Hyde, Macbeth, Romeo and Juliet, Great Expectations, plus the language videos giving tips and suggestions for creative writing. Many thanks for watching Schofield on Shakespeare.